Been a head-spinning 24 hours for geopolitics, and this morning, some much-needed clarity. President Trump has agreed to a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, delaying his threat to launch widespread attacks on the country. In a social media post, Mr. Trump says the ceasefire is subject to, quote, complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. He says the U.S. has, quote, received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believes, quote, it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. However, there appear to be some gaps between the two sides. In a statement, Tehran says the plan calls for the U.S. to withdraw forces from the region, fully compensate Iran, lift all sanctions, and grant Iran's armed forces control over the strait. Tehran is also calling for an end to hostilities against regional proxy groups. Now, for them, that includes Lebanon-based Hezbollah. But while Israel says it supports the ceasefire, it claims this deal does not include the fighting between the Israeli military and the militia group. And financial markets hailed the ceasefire effectively. Oil prices have dropped, with international Brent crude, the benchmark, down more than 13%. Now, we've got team coverage on all of this for you this morning. Imtiaz Tyab is tracking the latest in the Middle East from Doha, Qatar. But let's begin with CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi in our D.C. bureau. Good morning, Olivia. The president posted a lengthy explanation of an agreement as he sees it. He calls it a double-sided ceasefire. But what are we learning about the specific details from the U.S. perspective?
Well, good morning, Errol. Yes, certainly a lot of news this morning about this ceasefire. Last night around 6:30, the president posted that this is a double-sided ceasefire, meaning both sides have agreed. And there's a 10-point Iranian plan with a list of demands that was the working basis for this negotiation. The president also said that this included the immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and which in the next 2 weeks there will be shipping flowing through that region, and there will be negotiations happening. We also just heard from Vice President J.D. Vance, who's actually in Budapest, Hungary, who was doing an interview with a journalist where he talked about the truce. He called it a fragile truce right now, and he said that there were intense negotiations happening behind the scenes in which there was different factions inside of Iran that were having good faith negotiations with the United States, while there were others who were trying to thwart the negotiations and the fragile ceasefire that is in place right now. He says the real test is what's coming up, to see whether or not the Iranians mean it when they say they want to make a deal. Take a listen to what he said here.
If the Iranians are willing, in good faith, to work with us, I think we can make an agreement. If they're going to lie, if they're going to cheat, if they're going to try to prevent even the fragile truce that we've set up from taking place, then they're not going to be happy.
Now, I listened to that interview. He called it a fragile truce 4 times, if that tells you where his thinking is. However, other people in the administration are already calling this total victory, including the president himself. Also, last night on Truth Social, the president said that it was a big day for world peace. Big money will be made. He also said Iran can start their reconstruction process, and the U.S. will be loading up with supplies of all kind and just, quote, hanging around in order to make sure that everything goes well. The president expressed confidence that he feels that it will. We should note that the next phase of these talks are expected to continue later this week in Pakistan. That was at the invitation of the prime minister there, though both sides have not agreed to meet in person as of yet. Errol?
Yeah, important updates there, Olivia. Thanks. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab joins us from the region in Doha, Qatar. Good morning, Imtiaz. So what do we know about how this deal came together and how Tehran sees it?
Errol, good to be with you. How this deal came together, it has to be said, is pretty extraordinary. You had this frantic diplomacy from Pakistan, a country you normally don't see at the center of geopolitics, certainly not at the center of a mediation between the U.S., which is the world superpower, and a country like Iran. But Pakistan in some ways actually made the most sense. It shares a border with Iran. It has very close relations with the United States, but more crucially, it also has very good ties across the Gulf, where I am now. And all of that came together, and it became clear that the Pakistani leadership was the go-between between the Trump administration and indeed the Iranians, who welcomed them as negotiators. But in the background, we also understand that China was involved, speaking with Tehran, encouraging them to look at this ceasefire proposal and to bring it together. Now, while people are breathing a sigh of relief, whether it's in Islamabad or indeed around the region, I would say mediators in Pakistan are not running a victory lap. They understand that this is a very fragile ceasefire and talks still need to happen, and those gulfs are still pulled apart. Errol.
And let's drill into that slightly, Imtiaz. What major sticking points remain?
Every single last one of them. We have seen a 10-point plan from Iran. We've seen a 15-point plan from the U.S. And now they have to somehow come together. There is relatively little overlap. There is some, but not a lot. And if you look at those 15-point plans, which we heard in your introduction, the reality is that it is Iran's most maximalist position, and it is the U.S.'s most maximalist position. And so if we do see those face-to-face talks in Islamabad, the Pakistani capital, on Friday, potentially J.D. Vance, the vice president there, potentially the Iranian foreign minister Abbas Araghchi will be there as well. If we see those two in a room talking to each other, some believe it really could lead to some durable peace. And many here across the region and indeed around the world are calling for it. You mentioned the price of gas at the pump. If this war reactivates, we're only going to see stuff like that get even higher. Errol.
All right, Imtiaz Tyab joining us from Doha. Thank you, Imtiaz. Aaron MacLean joins us now. He's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran and CBS News national security analyst. Aaron, good morning to you. You were where I'm sitting now on air when the president sent the update about this ceasefire. He says it was made possible because the U.S. military met its military objectives. What do you make of that?
Well, the military did make a lot of progress towards some of the stated objectives of the war. The Iranian Navy effectively no longer exists. Iran's ability to project power more broadly, for example, through its ballistic missile program, is heavily degraded from where it started. However, since we've been talking about the ceasefire and the word that keeps getting used for it is fragile, my question about the ceasefire is it real? I've been seeing reports about Iran shooting at its neighbors, even in daylight hours today, the morning after the ceasefire was declared. It shot at Israel after the ceasefire was declared as well. I'm also very unclear about what the terms of passage in the Strait of Hormuz actually are. So whatever level of degradation of Iran's military capabilities occurred, and it was certainly real, the degradation is not to zero, and it's not clear to me that Iran is not currently using its military.
Now, we are getting a note that according to the research firm KPLER Kepler, only 2 vessels have passed through the strait since the announcement of this ceasefire. What should we be watching for, and what are the considerations there along the strait to see if this is real?
Right. I'm not particularly surprised that it's only been 2. Under the best of circumstances, it's going to take some time to get traffic back up to where it was, 100 plus vessels a day before the war. But my question is it the best of circumstances? What we should be looking for are ships allowed to pass freely through the center of the strait without interference from any other party, in particular Iran. That was the situation before the war, and that's what opening the strait means. If instead, as reports we're seeing suggest, ships have to get permission from Iran under threat of being blown up if they don't get said permission in transit anyway, I'm not sure how anyone could reasonably consider that to be the reopening of the strait. So that's what I'd be looking for. It's not just are ships transiting the strait, but how are they transiting the strait?
And in our last few seconds, Aaron, we've got these peace talks that will take place in Islamabad. How likely is a permanent deal, considering how far apart both sides appear with this ceasefire agreement?
Well, the president likes to say that the Iranians have never won a war nor lost a negotiation, which is a slight overstatement, but there are kernels of truth to it. They are savvy negotiators. Their positions are quite maximalist. I would assume unacceptable to the Americans, given the repeated rhetoric of the president and the administration throughout this war, that they're going to collect tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, that they're going to retain their nuclear program, et cetera, et cetera. Reparations is another one. It's hard to see how those terms are going to be the basis for an agreement, yet that's what the White House is asserting. So we will have to see. There's a lot of risk in the days ahead.
All right, Aaron, thanks so much. We always appreciate your insight.